Late at night, after the laughter had thinned to echoes in the rafters, Johnny Carson would sit alone behind his Tonight Show desk, rolling a pencil between his fingers like a wand. Old habits die hard, especially for a man who began his life as a magician. The audience saw a smooth talker, the king of late night, but inside, Carson was still that boy, obsessed with mystery, addicted to the feeling of not quite knowing how something was done. And near the end of his life, when he was asked what kind of performer truly thrilled him, what kind of act could make even Johnny Carson lean forward, he didn't hesitate. He said softly, "The Amazing Kreskin." Because Kreskin, unlike so many who passed through those studio doors, didn't lie to the house. He didn't claim spirits or psychic powers. He built wonder out of something far more honest, human perception. And to a magician-turned-talk show host, that kind of honesty was sacred. The arrival of a mind reader. To understand why Johnny loved Kreskin, you have to step back into early 1970s television, a world of shag carpet, flickering cathode light, and cultural curiosity. America was captivated by the strange and unexplained. Seances, spoon-benders, psychics. All of it had a home in prime time. Johnny Carson was fascinated, too, but he was a skeptical magician, not a believer. Before he was the king of late night, he'd performed sleight of hand as the Great Carsoni. He loved illusion, but he hated deceit. He could smell a fake from a mile away. And that's exactly why the Amazing Kreskin stood out. When Kreskin first walked onto Carson's stage, eyes darting, voice sharp, his energy filled the studio like a static charge. He didn't promise supernatural powers. He called himself a mentalist. His act was based on psychology, suggestion, and showmanship. He'd tell the audience, "I'm not psychic, I'm perceptive." Then, within minutes, he'd have an entire crowd holding its breath.
That's the last would be
And the
ten of
ten of
spades. It is.
Amazing. Thank you.
Johnny respected that deeply. The birth of the Amazing Kreskin. Kreskin's talent wasn't just his act, it was his rhythm. He knew how to time television. In fact, Carson himself helped cement his brand. On air, during one of Kreskin's early appearances, Johnny and Ed McMahon started joking about how amazing the mentalist had been. The nickname stuck. The Amazing Kreskin became household vocabulary. Kreskin would go on to appear on The Tonight Show 88 times, more than almost any other guest in the show's history. Each appearance was unpredictable, yet precise, a perfect dance of control and chaos. One of his signature routines was the hidden paycheck challenge. Before the show, producers would hide his appearance fee somewhere in the studio completely at random. When Kreskin came on stage, he'd read the micro-reactions of Carson, McMahon, and the crew until he found the check. It was pure theater, but it felt real. Carson adored it, not because he was fooled, but because it was honest deception, artfully done. The Bette Midler moment. Then came one of the most unforgettable nights in Tonight Show lore. During a segment, Kreskin performed a demonstration of muscle control, a stunt where a volunteer becomes so rigid they can balance across two chairs, head on one, heels on the other. Johnny, ever the good sport, volunteered. Kreskin looked to the audience and said, "Bette Midler, come up here for a second." Midler, still a rising star, hesitated. Kreskin motioned for her to sit, right on Johnny Carson's midsection. The crowd gasped, and then laughed. Johnny didn't flinch. It was absurd, suspenseful, and hilarious. Everything The Tonight Show was meant to be. That single moment captured the essence of their relationship: trust, humor, and shared respect for live danger. Johnny later said it was one of the best segments he ever did, not because it was perfect, but because it was alive. A line in the sand, the Uri Geller incident. But the roots of Johnny's admiration for Kreskin go deeper, into a moment that defined Carson's entire philosophy on magic and truth. In 1973, a young Israeli performer named Uri Geller came on The Tonight Show. Geller claimed to have real psychic abilities, the power to bend spoons with his mind. But Johnny, knowing the tricks of the trade, wasn't convinced. Behind the scenes, he worked with magician James Randi to ensure Geller couldn't use sleight of hand. On air, under those controlled conditions, Geller's powers failed him. The segment collapsed into awkward silence. Johnny didn't gloat. He didn't humiliate Geller, but he made his point. The audience deserved honesty. If you were a magician, say so. If you were an entertainer, own it. Don't call it the supernatural when it's showmanship. From that night on, Carson drew a clear line between illusion and fraud. And Kreskin lived comfortably on the right side of it. Kreskin's act, though mysterious, was rooted in psychology, not magic. He made people question their perceptions, but never their intelligence. That's why Carson loved him, not as a believer, but as a kindred skeptic. The alchemy of television. Television, as Carson understood it, was all about chemistry. Segments had to breathe, then explode. Kreskin was a producer's dream. He could shape his stunts to fit the timing of commercial breaks, build suspense, deliver payoff, and leave audiences laughing just as the music swelled. But what made Carson admire him wasn't efficiency, it was how human his act felt. Carson once told a producer that Kreskin gave television dignity. He meant that Kreskin proved you could amaze people without conning them. His work was clever, clean, and just dangerous enough to make it feel live. Behind the scenes, network executives occasionally worried about Kreskin's more daring ideas. Some stories suggest they even called Carson to express concern. Carson's response, allegedly, let him do it. Whether that conversation really happened or not, it fits perfectly with what insiders knew about him. Carson prized courage on his stage. Because real TV magic wasn't about tricks, it was about risk. What Johnny saw in Kreskin. There's a famous photograph of Carson and Kreskin on stage. Kreskin's eyes are narrowed, hands poised in midair. Carson's arms are folded. He isn't laughing. He isn't reacting. He's watching, calm, analytical, but clearly delighted. That was Johnny's secret. He loved being fooled when it was done well. He could know the method and still choose the wonder. In a way, Kreskin represented the best version of Carson himself, a man who used timing, suggestion, and charm to hold a nation's attention every night. Both were magicians of psychology, not mysticism. Both knew that truth and illusion could coexist if you respected the audience enough to let them in on the game. Carson once said of performers like Kreskin, "The good ones make you believe for a moment, but never feel cheated when it's over." That's why he loved him. Culture of belief and doubt. The 1970s were an era of contradictions. America was cynical after Watergate, yet spiritually hungry. People wanted something to believe in, even if it was only the possibility of wonder. Kreskin's act met that need perfectly. He offered belief without betrayal. He never called it psychic ability, he called it focus. He reminded viewers that the mind itself is mysterious enough. And Carson, who'd built his empire by balancing skepticism with curiosity, recognized a mirror of his own nature. He wasn't mocking belief, he was defending authenticity. In Kreskin, he found proof that truth and showmanship could live on the same stage. The legacy left behind. Kreskin continued performing for decades, right into his later years, long after Johnny retired in 1992. When Kreskin passed away in 2024, many obituaries mentioned the same statistic, 88 appearances with Johnny Carson.
With his mentalist tricks, he appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson 88 times.
For a performer, that number was a Medal of Honor. Those late-night sessions, sometimes comedic, sometimes eerie, always human, had become part of Carson's own mythology. Each appearance reminded audiences that, for all his control and composure, Johnny Carson loved to be surprised. He admired Kreskin not just as an entertainer, but as a symbol, the embodiment of a philosophy he'd lived by since the days of the Great Carsoni. Never trick people into believing in magic. Invite them to believe in themselves instead. The final reflection. Imagine that studio again, the set empty, the cameras cooling, the city outside asleep. Johnny's pencil, the magician's wand, rests quietly on the desk. He had spent 30 years mastering the art of conversation, of timing, of mystery. But in the end, the moment that truly defined him wasn't a punchline or a celebrity interview. It was the times he let a guest like Kreskin run the room. Because Carson understood something profound. Control isn't power. Surrender is. The magic happens when you stop pretending to know everything and let yourself be amazed. That was the heart of his admiration for the amazing Kreskin, not the tricks, not the fame, but the integrity of a man who made people believe while telling them exactly why they shouldn't. Johnny Carson's world went dark in 2005, but his quiet revelation lingers. He didn't love magic for its mystery. He loved it for its honesty, and that's what the amazing Kreskin left behind. A reminder that truth dressed as astonishment will always outlast illusion. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below as it helps support this channel. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.